So we're seeing the reemergence of what people are calling trad, or trad life. For the people that don't know what that is, could you explain it?
Sure. So there's a huge movement, I feel like, right now going on online, the trad life, the trad wife. And I will say, I feel like there's a really big negative connotation to the traditional lifestyle. I don't necessarily love the trad wife movement. I do think that it can be somewhat degrading to femininity. And that's why I like our event, where our theme is this year is called Getting Back to Our Roots, and instilling those traditional values within the home and upholding our Constitution, upholding American values. And so, when you think about like, what is a trad wife? What is the trad life? Well, all it is upholding and living a traditional life and not allowing the government to control us. We're all about not loving big government. So that is just bringing it back to the home, strong nuclear families, and continuing to create strong generations that are going to love their country and continue to fight for our freedoms and uphold our Constitution.
So do you think that there's a trend now as well with women trying to get back to their roots and embrace femininity? Because the left has pushed women have to act like men in order to be successful or whatever, just dressing more feminine, being more feminine. Do you think that that's more something that people are gravitating toward?
I honestly think yes. If you look at the feminist movement, if you look at the leftist movement over the past 4 years, I think women are so fed up of being fed the lies of feminism. We're women. We don't want to compete with men. And I think that there's something so beautiful about embracing femininity. Because when a woman embraces their own inherent natural femininity, it allows men to embrace their masculinity and step into their masculine roles. Because right now, our culture is emasculating men. They're saying, well, it's okay to be feminine. The whole soy boy male genre is really what's being promoted to our next generation. And I think it's doing a disservice for the future of America, because when you're destabilizing the sexes and destabilizing the nuclear family, well, then how are we supposed to reproduce and continue to foster the next great generation? So I definitely think that femininity, we're definitely taking it back. We're bringing it back. There's nothing wrong with being a woman, dressing femininely, and being able to tap into our natural and inherent rights and roles.
And one thing I've noticed, you'll see women on the left, advocates of leftism say, well, oh, men should be this way, or I want them to be, more feminine, this and that. But then when it comes down to it, if you talk to like a liberal woman even, they'll admit like, well, when it comes to someone I'm dating, right, I want a more masculine guy. Like it's all great to them in theory, but then when it's put in practice, no one really wants a guy like that. So
absolutely.
What's your reaction?
I mean, no woman actually wants a man who's going to stay at home and you want to work for the rest of your life. Men aren't meant to be nurturers. Women are inherently meant to be nurturers and take care of the family. And it is very ironic when you talk to even a very leftist woman, they still want a man to provide in the household. They still want that masculine energy. They still want a man to raise their little boys, because boys need to be parented differently than young girls. And I think it's really interesting to see how even some of the most far leftists in our culture still actually want a masculine man, yet why are they preaching a culture with the feminist movement that's emasculating our next generations? That's why we need to keep fathers in the home. That's why we need to uplift families and actually encourage people to raise our next generation.
Do you think that the feminist movement has realized that it works against women, even with having men participate in women's sports and things like that? Are they starting to realize like what we've been doing is we need to go in the opposite direction if we want to actually embrace feminism, or whatever that
bring back traditional values? And I think that the feminist movement isn't quite there yet. And a lot of the feminist movement has also been encapsulated as pro-woman with the pro-abortion movement. That has also kind of become a part of feminism. So has men competing in women's sports, which I will never understand. How has the transgender movement also become a pro-woman movement when really the feminist movement, the transgender movement, the pro-abortion movement, all three of these movements have in common of that they're anti-woman. They're anti what women are naturally made to do. We are naturally made to be women and compete against other women. That's why Title IX existed. That's why we have female sports, is so that we don't have to compete against men. We need to stop trying to be like men and compete against men. And we also need other young girls to stand up and say enough is enough. We're not going to allow these young men to compete against us, and tell the culture we're sick of it. And I think the feminist movement is almost there. We see a lot of women that are starting to wake up, and I think that the lies of feminism, birth control, a lot of the big food, the big pharma, the lies that these women are told their whole lives is causing them to start to wake up to a lot of these issues that they've been told their whole lives. And then they realize, oh my goodness, I'm actually way more happier just embracing my femininity.
And I've seen actually a recent push of more women being against birth control in general. Yeah. You're almost like sending a message to men like, you can have all of me and there's no responsibility, right. There's no
There's no accountability.
Potential of even like carrying on my bloodline. Like you can just have me and there's nothing else.
Which is so sad.
That's all it is, just like the sex.
Like, why are women so willing to be a part of the sexual revolution and give their bodies to somebody that they barely know? And that's why I always tell young girls, if that person isn't going to be your husband, if that person you don't want to be the father of your children, then why are you even engaging in that? And I think that the birth control movement, look at the side effects, the laundry list of side effects, and even go back to when the birth control movement even started with the women's movement. It all started with Margaret Sanger and the eugenics movement. And I don't think that people realize that this is kind of an effort of population control, and everything that they say that's women's empowerment is really self-degradement, because there's nothing empowering about having multiple sexual partners. There's nothing empowering about being on birth control alters your hormones. And I don't think there's anything empowering about masking your hormones and trying to fix it with something that Big Pharma is spoon feeding to you.
We have a lot of frustrated men and women, and they're on the dating apps, and it's almost like the dating apps maybe foster this environment. What's your advice to anyone who's serious about finding someone and wants to embrace more traditional lifestyle, get back to their roots, but they're just caught up in, it's 2024, you're caught up in this dating app world. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm a single woman, I'm out dating, and it is so difficult. I know my mom, she looks at me and she's like, I could never date in 2024 with this generation. And I genuinely think that we need to start seeking in our church communities, in our conservative communities, mutual friends, because I don't think the dating apps work at all. I had to delete all of them, because the problem is Gen Z, we're so used to that instant gratification of getting a like, of getting a comment, getting a follow, the social media craving. And so when you take a look at dating apps, it's that same type of energy and attention that women are getting and men are getting, to where you get a swipe, you text for a little bit, you might go on a first date if it even gets there, and then it ends. And it's continuing to perpetuate the culture of hookup culture and continuing to push the sexual revolution of sleeping around with no consequences, which really isn't the case. So I really think that women and men need to really look inwards, embracing their traditional values, embracing their own femininity, and women need to allow men to be masculine, and men need to allow women to be feminine, so that we can continue to bring back those bonds.
And then I have a couple questions that it veers off into politics.
Okay, let's do it.
So,
I like politics.
Yeah. What's your reaction to Trump sentencing a couple days before the RNC? What do you think is going on there?
Trump sentencing, coming from a Gen Z woman who, I was 16 when Donald Trump was first elected in 2016, and that's when I was canceled by my leftist California high school because I was one of few conservatives, and I had to stand up for free speech. So now when I see Trump's sentencing coming out, that he is guilty on 34 counts, this is the reality of what the Department of Justice is doing, because they are so fearful of a man who is standing up for freedom, who is standing up for free speech, who is actually going to be countercultural and instill American values. We need to go back in time 60 years and actually bring back American patriotism within our country. It has gone too far, and I honestly think that America is a laughingstock to a lot of our foreign nations given the current administration. And I think that they are so fearful of him winning by a landslide that they're having to do anything and everything they can to try and prevent him.
Do you think that people are seeing through it, like with the conviction? Do you think that they see it for what it is, or do you think it'll hurt him in the election?
I honestly think it's going to help him. Coming from a Gen Z perspective, he is getting so much PR and press. Every single news, media, independent journalist is covering this election and covering this trial and the ongoing controversy between the election. And I think it's just giving him more press and allowing him to be platformed on another level, to where he can call out our government, call out government corruption. I know that the RNC is also focusing on election integrity. I know Laura Trump is now one of the new RNC chairs. And I just think that, our nation craves truth. My generation craves truth, and we need to continue to expose that and actually push forward to where we have free and fair elections, where we're upholding our Constitution, and we actually need to uplift free speech and upholding the First Amendment so that we can protect all of our other amendments in the Constitution.